Welcome in to the latest episode of that SEC podcast. I'm your host, Michael Braden. I go by SEC Mike on Twitter, and I'm joined as always by my cousin Shane, who goes by Big Orange Balls on Twitter. What are you up to, you big Tennessee homer?
Well, I'd opened up a beer can, Mike, but I did that 10 minutes ago before this camera screwed up on me. So I am pumped up. I'm excited. Maybe I got the pregame jitters going on right now. I'm a little jealous that everybody's listening to this show. They're already closer to kickoff time, Mike. It just ain't fair. So, but other than that, brother, I'm in rare form, and I am ready to rock and roll, man. I'm ready for some football.
And we'll have it soon enough, Shane, and just hours away from Tennessee kicking off the season, Missouri kicking off from the season, loads and loads of other games, and just one day away from the rest of the SEC. Well, 2 days if you're an LSU fan, but hey, we got a loaded show, Shay. We got multiple guests on the line. But before we get to all this, I just want to make another note. Hey, we got another Twitter Spaces coming up on Friday.
Yes.
The people that are showing up for that are having a great time. You can ask us questions. And I feel like this is going to be the best one yet, Shane, because people are going to be wanting to discuss our game picks for the weekend. And again, that's 8 o'clock Eastern, 7 o'clock Central, Friday evening on Twitter. But can I make a bold prediction now, Shane, on the Twitter Spaces?
Well, yeah, go ahead, man.
If Tennessee loses to Ball State, cousin Shane
I won't be there.
Ain't showing up for that.
That is correct, sir. As all the new listeners probably don't know, but Shane's got a pretty firm 48-hour rule, you know. Not like Alabama. Like, if you lose to Alabama, you know, you kind of saw that one coming, Georgia, that sort of thing. But you drop one to Georgia State, shit, you ain't going to see me for a while. So I just got to get my mind right. So hopefully that won't be the case. You'll see me there bright-eyed and bushy-tailed on Friday night. But, you know, another thing, me and Mike are getting together tonight because you guys are watching this on Thursday. And we're going to watch the game. So hopefully, who knows, we may even do a little Twitter Spaces tomorrow just to play around and get your thoughts on the college football action.
Yeah, I can't wait for it, Shane. I cannot wait for this loaded show. Like I said, we got Ty Richardson, our buddy, ESPN Arkansas, is going to talk about the Razorbacks and the Bearcats, Cincinnati Bearcats, that matchup. We got Will Miles from the Read and Reaction, going to preview Florida and Utah. Two friends of the show back for this loaded episode. But before we get to those interviews, Shane, we had some big news here with the NCAA on Wednesday, so I had to hit on this just real quick. The transfer portal, Shane, they're not closing it, but they're changing it a little bit. So stay with me here. Right now, the way the transfer portal works, you can jump into that bad boy 365, 24/7. At any point in time, you can jump in the portal. Well, that's coming to an end. It's what they're going to do, Shane. They're saving it for right after the college football season, December 5th to January 18th. So you're going to have 45 days. That's going to be a fun 45 days for us, brother, because there's going to be people jumping in, jumping out, and all the recruiting that goes along with that. And then right after spring football, Shane, May 1st to May 15th, 2 weeks there, right after spring. Those are going to be the transfer portal windows. And I know, you know, we're in favor of players being able to transfer, not having to sit out all that. But I do like this. I like the fact that, particularly during the season and during fall camp, you can't just pack up and leave your team, because you're doing a disservice to the team. But I honestly think, Shane, I think you're doing a disservice to yourself, because who knows, you may be second on the depth chart today, but you know, God forbid an injury happens, you're right on the field. You could be a key contributor for the season. So thoughts on that, Shane? 2 windows here again, right after the season, December 5th to January 18th, and right after spring football, May 1st to May 15th. Thoughts on that?
I like it, man. I like the window. Just, you know, because sometimes it's been a distraction during the season. And, you know, I understand, you know, these are kids, Mike. They're emotional, man. I got a house full of women, brother. I know about emotions. And sometimes they do things they don't mean, and they say things they don't. And then, sometimes, I don't know if that's with the portal, but you jump in, you become a news. You become a piece of an article that comes out over the weekend, and maybe they're not talking as much about your team. They're talking about you. So I like that it's kind of getting away from the distraction of the transfer portal, and it's closing up in a window. So I think this is great. And, I think it kind of too takes off the pressure of these coaches worried about their kids leaving. They can just focus on their team and task at hand.
Yeah, so this is something that we're going to have to remind the audience about probably by the end of the, we'll get to the transfer portal time, but thankfully for now we can focus on the field, focus on the football. But we do have one other kind of outside the realm, but this is a big deal, Shane, more SEC-centric. But it's going to start in the Big 12, Shane. I don't know if you saw this news, but on Wednesday it was broke that the Big 12 is negotiating new television rights contracts.
Mm-hmm.
And why that's important, they were not scheduled to do that for at least another year, but they are working with ESPN right now to get a new TV rights deal. And the only reason that I bring it up, it's very important for this show, the Big 12 cannot do a new rights deal unless every single member of that league, which right now is Texas and Oklahoma, they have to sign off on it. And Texas and Oklahoma sure as hell is not going to sign off on anything that does not get them to the SEC quicker.
Right.
And, of course, the SEC is already partnered with ESPN. That is who the Big 12 is negotiating with for their new rights deal. So, this is an assumption, but it's got to be a safe assumption, Shane, that that fee, that exit fee that Texas and Oklahoma have to pay, ESPN would be the one that is paying it.
Yeah.
And ESPN right now is negotiating with the Big 12 for a new TV deal. So, however you want to look at that, let's say the Big 12 is worth $30 million a year per school.
Yeah.
ESPN can knock that up and say, how about $40 million a year? But you got to let Texas and Oklahoma out of the deal because it serves us. So this is not just me speculating. There's people been reporting this. Texas and Oklahoma, this is a great, great news for people that want to see them in the SEC even sooner. And they're saying even next season, potentially, Texas and Oklahoma into the SEC. So this is great news, I think, for the league.
Oh, man, it just goes to show we're all just puppets, baby. Yeah. ESPN, Disney, they're going to do whatever they want. They're going to make this happen either way. And what do you do? I mean, you're hurting ESPN by not allowing them to do this. And do you really want to hurt the guy that's about to cut your check? So
exactly.
I think you're onto something here, Mike. It's going to happen sooner or later. We're not surprised at all, but look for some news here shortly to come out, and maybe a quicker time frame for Texas and Oklahoma to join the SEC.
Yeah, and why this is even happening so quickly, Shane. The Pac-12 right now, they are negotiating their TV deal, and this is why the Big 12 sped it up a year, because they're worried that with Southern Cal and UCLA no longer in the Pac-12, their value is not, where it once was. So whatever the deal is for the Pac-12, let's say they're worth $25 million a year per school. The Big 12, when they get to their rights negotiations, it's going to be based on what the Pac-12's getting. So they're trying to get ahead of that. So don't look for this to linger. Look for this to happen quickly, because the Big 12 wants to get there before the Pac-12 signs the dotted line. And ESPN, ABC, their deals with the Big 10 are coming to an end. So ESPN's they need programming, and they have extra money to spend on the Big 12. I do not anticipate this being a months and months deal. I think this is going to happen within weeks, that this is announced, and we're going to have confirmation of how quickly Texas and Oklahoma are coming to the SEC, and it's looking like it's going to be sooner than expected.
Hell, Mike, it may have already happened, and they're looking on ways of releasing this thing. So I think you're right. They cannot pussyfoot around. They have got to get this thing out there, because, like you said, if PAX comes out devalued at a lower cost, then that's exactly what these other schools are going to be looking at there in the Big 12. So No, this is going to be a speedy thing, and don't, like I said, don't be surprised if it's not already done. Just maybe somebody hasn't signed yet.
Yeah, exactly. Well, hey, Shane, one more thing before we get to our interviews here. I thought we were done with this, Shane, but it has been brought up one more time here. Shane,
why not, Mike?
Sure.
Why not?
And all of a sudden, man, this may be the most anticipated Kentucky-South Carolina game of all time. And it's Shane Beamer still got being asked about Mark Stoops. And yeah, this is some pretty bold comments here from Shane Beamer. So let's kick it over. This is from the SEC Coaches Teleconference here on Wednesday.
Hey, Shane, I just want to ask you, just, kind of looking at this from 10,000 feet, you've done some really creative and fun things on social media, and I think to generate a lot of positive attention for your program. When another coach comes out and makes the offhanded remark, does that discourage you, or just, how does it affect what you're doing when other programs in the league, jealous or whatever, have comments about social media campaigns? Is that something you have to take into consideration, or would you talk to the other coach about that?
No. I know the situation you're referring to. Mark said that he wasn't directing that at us, and, didn't spend a whole lot of time thinking about it beyond that. We worry about ourselves. Certainly we want to do things in a respectful way, but we try and, worry about our own program and stay in our lane, as Mark said he tried to do when the basketball coach at Kentucky made the comment about Kentucky's football program. So, we're not for everybody, but one thing you can't say about us as a program is it's not that it's an act. What you see with us is what you get. We're real, we're genuine, and don't spend a whole lot of time worrying about people's opinions outside this building. We try and promote our program the best that we can and have fun, but no, to me, we want to be relevant, and I feel like I'm hearing more from, not that I spend a whole lot of time looking at my mentions on Twitter, but I can certainly say there's a lot more Kentucky fans, Clemson fans, Tennessee fans, Florida fans on there than there were last year. So maybe that means we're doing something right. I don't know. But ultimately, we're trying to just get ready to play every single week and make a statement on the field more so than anything.
It just means more. It just means more.
And I love the fact that Beaver says, well, hell, remember what he said when Calipari called him a basketball school? So he's throwing that little knife jab in there. But, man, I cannot imagine that Mark Stoops and Shane Beamer, regardless of what Kentucky fans are trying to sell you out or what story Mark Stoops has got, these two do not like each other. And, it's evident.
It really is. And it's funny because South Carolina, I don't know if you noticed, there was other questions that came out. One of Spencer was all about the Oklahoma, and then we heard the Oklahoma walk. Mm-hmm. It just seems like it's nonstop over there in Columbia. It's like, what about these other schools? What about us? Who gives a shit about Oklahoma? Who gives nobody cares about Kentucky over there. But they keep wallering in it, and they keep going at it, and it's going to carry over into that locker room. It's going to be pinned up in the locker room, when they see these articles and hear this stuff and these hot takes out of Lexington. Mm-hmm. So I think when these two teams meet, it's just going to mean more, man. It's going to mean more to the fan base because every time somebody asks the question, the fans listen to the answer. So I love it. I hope this is it. I hope this is the final one, but it's not, Mike. I'm telling you right now, because game week is getting brought up. So
yeah, and for South Carolina, Shane, those fans are fired up. They're excited for the future, but you can't even begin to take that next step in the East until you beat Kentucky. Kentucky's owned you. And Kentucky, they got their eyes on Atlanta. No chance in hell that's happening if you slip up and you fall behind South Carolina. So just this game means so much all the way around, no matter how you slice it.
Man, there's so many important games coming up, Mike, before then. So, yeah, we'll talk about it a little closer to date. So, hopefully this is the last time we hear Beamer and Stoops' argument,
Well, speaking of that, Shay, you're right. We got a hell of a game here coming up on Saturday. Arkansas hosting Cincinnati, a battle of ranked teams.
Mm-hmm.
Let's kick it over to Ty Richardson, ESPN Arkansas radio host, who gives us the latest down there from Fayetteville. All right, we're pleased to once again be joined by our guy, Ty Richardson, of course, host of the Morning Rush, ESPN Arkansas Radio, and you can follow him at Ty Sports Radio. Thanks for joining the show, Ty. How you doing, buddy?
Mike, I'm great. What a Thursday. I mean, we are 2 days from the Mecca of all Meccas. College football is upon us. I am going to eat and drink my way through this season, as I've done every year since 21 years old, because you know us. We didn't drink before we turned 21, Mike.
Never. And speaking of drinking, I met up with you last week in Nashville. We went out for lunch, and of course, we ended up at the bar. But then, as you told me, you never really stopped that week, did you?
No, we went to a local yokel spot in Nashville, Tennessee, one of your watering holes. And then from there, just did not pace myself whatsoever. Went down to Santa Rosa area. Let me tell you something. If you're down at the Redneck Riviera, 2 words, and it's really 1 word, AJ's. Graydon Beach. It is the best ratio of any bar I've ever been to in my entire life. It was
nice.
Unbelievable, Mike. There are beautiful women in the South, let me tell you.
Maybe that could be a new sponsor of the show.
Oh, please. AJ's, Graydon Beach, new sponsor of that SEC podcast. I mean, all the people listening are probably going down there at some point, so you might as well.
So, hey, I already know the answer to this, but I got to ask you anyway. I'm sure you saw the clip. What's Arkansas bringing to the party? They bringing iced tea or they bringing liquor this Saturday?
Oh, liquor, dude. Pittman always jokes with the fans before a big game. He's like, let him get lathered up a little bit. He likes those night games. He makes references it too. I think he likes to pop a one off after a win. I'm pretty sure he told us, if I remember correctly, that him, Hunter, and the wives and everyone else were up till 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning after that Texas win, and for good reason, after they pounded the Longhorns into oblivion. So yes, Arkansas fans will be absolutely sloshed. It is going to be about 92 at kickoff on Saturday in 2 days. So hopefully there'll be a water mixed in here and there for their sakes.
So I feel like this is the same conversation we have every year with Arkansas. It's a great time to be a Razorback fan. The basketball team's incredible. Baseball team, we all know the tradition there. Now football. What's the anticipation level, though, with the Razorback fan base that you're so plugged in with? I mean, can you think of a time where they were this fired up for a football season?
Man, it's been over a decade. I think maybe you can make an argument for 2015 with Brett Bielema, had Brandon Allen, Alex Collins and company. That was a pretty good squad. But they had some puzzling losses, including to Toledo. I don't know, Matt Campbell was the coach then. I think Kareem Hunt was on that team as well. Also lost to Patrick Mahomes in Texas Tech. So you lost at least to a good couple of big leaguers that we know now have success in the NFL. But at the same time, it was just an odd season. Dude, it is juice here in Fayetteville, Fort Smith, Harrison, Mount Hope, Little Rock. You go anywhere in Arkansas, only thing on people's minds right now is Razorback football, and for good reason. Sam Pittman's got these guys fired up for this season. He's got the confidence too. I think that's another thing that he projects is a quiet confidence. He's very respectful of Luke Fickell in Cincinnati, and he doesn't want to give them any sort of motivation heading into Fayetteville because they're going to be ticked off. But there's a confidence within the state right now, and Sam Pittman is really the order of that.
I don't want to bring up too many bad memories because, like you just said, there's so much to celebrate. But you mentioned 2015. Was that the year we had the damn truck fire?
Brandon Allen's truck was either in 2014 or 2015. Best comment was when he was asked about it, my golf clubs were in there. Brandon's a Fayetteville guy. Bobby Allen, his dad, was on staff at Arkansas. We know his brother Austin went there. He's a goober, man. He's got the swagger of a QB1. I know he's married now and has a kid, but that guy never left Z-Bar in Fayetteville without at least one or two girls with him. That was just the swagger he had on and off the field. But yeah, he's kind of got a little goofball to him too. I think I don't know him that well personally. I've met him like once, and he was nice enough. But yeah, that might have been the season before, but it was definitely a memory that Arkansas fans will hold the rest of their life.
So looking ahead to the season, I mean, a lot of transfers incoming for Arkansas. Which one do you think makes the biggest impact to start the year for the Razorbacks?
I think it's got to be Drew Sanders. Drew Sanders coming over from Alabama, 5-star kid out of Texas, catches guys that not linebackers don't catch. Malik Hornsby, Satane, these wide receivers that other linebackers would get left in the dust, but this kid's just a different animal. You start at linebacker at Alabama, you are a different duck, and he's got some speed to him. I'm ready to see him come off the edge and light someone up, preferably his former teammate, Bryce Young, week number 5. But I'd settle for whoever Cincinnati trots out there. I know Fickle said earlier this week they decided on their starting quarterback. Whoever they trot out there in 2 days, he's more than welcome to put a beating on them as well, Mike.
Yeah, what do you think about that? I wanted to ask you, Luke Fickell not naming a quarterback. I mean, at this point in time, I don't see the need in it, but what's your thoughts on that?
It's just a tactical advantage he's trying to use. He doesn't want Barry Odom to have every single bit of knowledge spent on one guy.
Yeah.
And so even if Odom has good sources or maybe someone's telling him pretty good information, he always has that in the back of his head. Well, what if Coach Fickell rolls out the other guy? What if there's packages for the other guy? Whatever it may be. Now, I wouldn't be too surprised if we saw a little Malik Hornsby package, not necessarily just at wide receiver, but at different things. I'm really curious what Kendall Briles does, but I mean, Brian Kelly's not going to name the LSU guy, even though we know it's going to be Jaden Daniels. I don't know if it's Altmaier or Dart for Ole Miss. I know that Haynes King just got named. Finley just got named, which I know you and Shane were talking about this week. I'm ready to see these SEC West quarterback battles this year and which one, if they made the right decision or if they had to switch mid-season.
Now, if there's one guy that you can think of, Ty, on this roster that maybe the casual SEC fan, not a household name on this Arkansas roster that you think is a breakout player, potentially even right out the gate, who's the first name that comes to your mind?
Well, I give credit to a guy that doesn't get enough credit, and that's the center, Ricky Stromberg. Here's an all-SEC guy, a guy that most fans, when you think about marquee players, you don't think about offensive linemen. It just doesn't come to. But he's going to be a potential All-American candidate. They haven't had a Remington Award winner, I believe, since Jonathan Luigs in 2006 or 7. He has a chance to be that. Sam Pittman, we know his success at offensive line. He was on record saying, look, Cody's better than I was at his age, and I think he's incredible. People seem to love Cody Kennedy. His press conferences are fantastic. So I would say Ricky Stromberg, Mike, is my kind of unheralded pick if you ask the SEC fan, hey, which Arkansas player are you going to go with that might not be so known?
Who do you think will lead Arkansas in receiving in this opener against Cincinnati?
How about Matt Landers? I didn't think he was going to start. 6'5" kid, didn't really play at Georgia. Has a good year at Toledo, 500-plus yards, I think 5 touchdowns, had a really big – can't remember. They had one really big game. Brandon Landers can just fly. And if you're 6'5" and you can run too, man, KJ just needs to throw you the ball. So in post routes, and maybe it's just 1 or 2 deep balls, but you know how it is, Mike. All it takes is a couple long throws, and next thing you know, guys got 70, 80 yards. I don't know if anyone's going to bust 100 yards in game 1. I know Brian and Gardner are on the other side, but I think that if I'm Fickell, I'm saying, look, I don't trust any of you wide receivers. Y'all can't do anything on us. I don't care if we just lost 2 guys to the NFL. Beat us right now. And I'm stacking the box. I'm bringing safeties down. I'm doing whatever it takes to make sure KJ, Rocket, if Dominique plays, AJ, and the other guys, they don't beat us. That's my mindset if I'm Luke Fickell. Curious what he does on Saturday for that Arkansas offense against it.
How many design runs do you think we'll have for KJ Jefferson in this ball game? And kind of like a two-parter to that, but would you try to limit that? Because I think, against Alabama, A&M, some of the better teams you're going to face, KJ is going to have to put the team on his back. And certainly you'd hope that's not the case here against Cincinnati. So would you try to kind of limit his design runs?
That's a great question, Mike. Kendall Briles was on record saying that KJ is going to do whatever it takes to win. If it's a couple keeps a game, if it's 15 keeps a game, I think this guy just wants to win football games. And that's a player that you want leading your team, your program. This guy is a tough dude. You know how we always see these pictures of like a dog poking out of the heart? KJ is that picture. He is that. image that we see. He's just an absolute, and that's why all these guys follow him. So I don't think you can necessarily limit. I think that Arkansas's running attack from the running backs will be better because they're back in Briles' system for another year. I don't know if KJ will get, I think he was 660 something last year. I don't know if he achieves that. So I'm kind of with you because I don't want him to have to beat Cincinnati. You should have enough on your own to beat Cincinnati.
Yeah.
You need him for Alabama. You need him for A&M. You might need him down the road for LSU. We saw what he had to do against Ole Miss last year to keep him in it. So I'm with your line of thinking on that one, Mike.
What's the biggest question mark that you have for this Razorback team that you can't answer it until we see them on the field on Saturday?
D-line, man. I've said it for 4 months, that defensive line. And I don't care what positives come out of the coaching staff's mouth until I see what they're going up against 5 returning starters on Saturday. It's going to be a pretty good telling sign. Now, it's not Alabama. It's not Georgia, LSU, some of the guys that will be on those rosters on their front 5. But when you got 5 returning starters on a team that went to the college football playoff last year, it's a pretty big deal. And Barry Odom's going to try and dial up a bunch of different things, get Drew Sanders involved in the blitz packages along with some other cornerbacks and safeties. But your front 4, or when they run 3, first 4 games last year, they were awesome. They got pressure with 3. After that, not so much. So that being said, if that D-line is even slightly better than what Sam Pittman and company expect them to be, they'll win 10 games. They will win 10 games. But if it is the clear weakness of this football team, then I'm going to be more around my line of 8, maybe even 7. If they step up, that is the key to the entire season, in my opinion, Mike. Maybe I'm overblowing it, but I don't think so.
All right, Ty, moment of truth. Who wins the ball game? And you better not say Cincinnati.
Yeah, I don't think Arkansas fans would ever listen to me on this show again or on the Morning Rush. I think they would completely eradicate me from their system. I think Arkansas is in a dogfight till about the 4th quarter, and they pull away late. I think maybe a turnover. We saw it last year against Rice. They had like 12 penalties last year, something insane. Pittman was asked about that earlier this week. He's like, yeah, we're going to clean that up. You can tell he was hot about that question and kind of the start of last season. I'm going to say Arkansas wins this game, and it's Thursday, so I have a right to change on Friday and Saturday. I'm going to say they win 34-17. I'm going to say Cam Little kicks 2 field goals. The defense is up to snuff. They might allow a touchdown or 2, but I think 34-17 Arkansas fans would be more than happy. The line's like, depending on who you ask, it's anywhere from 6 to 8. So if you cover by that much, I think Arkansas fans should be hyped heading into a big game against South Carolina the following week.
Yeah, no doubt. All right, Ty, I really appreciate your time. Tell the audience where to find your work.
Well, you can find me at AJ's Graydon Beach this time next year. No question about that. But, yeah, you can at Ty Sports Radio, the Morning Rush, the show that I'm with, the voice of the Arkansas Razorbacks, Chuck Barrett, and then Tommy Kraft, who's the best boss in the country. We do that every day from 6 to 9 a.m. on hitthatline.com and ESPN Arkansas.
So he's picking Arkansas, Shane, of course, as you expect to win big in this matchup, just so you know.
Shocker. Didn't see that one coming.
All right, buddy. So, hey, I appreciate Ty, as always, hopping on the show, one of the best out there in the SEC radio land, but confident in those Hogs, Shane, as he should be. You know what?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And you talk about a team, you talk about a community that is just on cloud 9 right now. It's Arkansas Razorbacks, and you see it online, you see it at every social media outlet, hell, even TikTok. 'Cause I keep getting into their algorithms, and there's a lot of anticipation, a lot of excitement over there, and rightfully so. I mean, you hear it in Ty's voice here.
How many times during our Twitter Spaces, Shane, we have Arkansas people coming there, and I mean, it was not even a bold take by the end of the call that Arkansas is going to beat Alabama. I don't even know if that's going to be a test. It's more like a speed bump for them fans.
I can't even imagine what local radio is going through over there, because if they found that SEC podcast, because you're right, they found our Twitter Spaces, and it is a lot of Arkansas, a lot of just passion, and it's time, man. They deserve nice things. They've had some bad years, so I hope all goes well, but now it's time to put up or shut up. The talking season's over. It's kickoff time, baby.
Now, our second interview, Shane, another great one. Will Miles, Read and Reaction, Gators Breakdown. Check out his website. He does a hell of a job. He's breaking down this epic game, Florida hosting Utah. All right, we're pleased to once again be joined by Will Miles. Of course, you know him from readandreaction.com, the Stand Up and Holler. He's the host of Stand Up and Holler. He contributes to Gators Breakdown, the Outstanding Gator Show, and you got to give him a follow at Will Miles SEC. Will, thank you so much for joining me once again.
No, I appreciate it. It's always fun. It's like you said before we went live. It's nice to talk about football finally. It seems like it takes forever, and then it goes by so quick. So you got to appreciate it when it's here. Yeah,
well, I know you don't want to talk recruiting, and neither do I because the games are right around the corner. But I wanted to start with this real quick. How thankful are you that them Gators did not hire Scott Frost?
Well, I mean, I last year I tongue in cheek came up with an award called the Kirby Award because Kirby Smart always seemed to sort of, put his foot in his mouth when it was time for a big game, and he almost did for me last year against Alabama in the SEC championship game. Obviously, made up for it on the back end in the national championship game, but I think Frost won it like 4 or 5 times last year, and he's on pace again already. It's funny. I actually have no problem with the onside kick that everybody has a problem with. The problem I have with Frost is that he then went on the podium and was like, well, now that I've seen the result, I guess I wouldn't do it again. And I'm like, boy, is that terrible process when you're making decisions. That's how you end up losing 8 straight 1-score games or whatever it is there in Lincoln. So I got a buddy who's a Nebraska fan, so I text him pretty much every Saturday my condolences, and I'm happy with where Florida ended up. That's for sure.
Well, over at Read and Reaction, one of your most recent pieces, you talked about the SEC East and how the Gators, where were they voted? 4th, I think, in the media poll.
Yep.
But that's not how I voted. And I don't know if you knew this, Will, but we have the exact same SEC East predictions, which caught a lot of people off guard. Florida number 2 and Kentucky number 5. Why is it that based on your research that you think Florida could do as well as number 2?
Well, I mean, I think what you look at when you look at the SEC, regardless of what stat you're looking at, I chose to look at EPA, which is expected points added. I also looked at yards per play in the article. But regardless of what metric you look at, what happens is Georgia and Alabama have clearly separated themselves, both on offense and defense. And then there's just this grouping of teams that sort of all sat in the same place. And the records last year were completely dictated by essentially who performed well in close games. So Tennessee performed poorly in close games. I think they were 1-3. Florida was 1-4. And then you look at Kentucky and they were 5-1. You look at Ole Miss, they were 2-0. So these teams that for all the advanced metrics sort of sat in a little cluster separated themselves from a record perspective because of their success in close games. And then you go look at who those teams are bringing back. And I think you look at a team like Tennessee, who's bringing back Hendon Hooker, and I have a lot of confidence in Hooker. I went to Virginia Tech as well, so I pay attention to them. So I paid attention to Hooker when he was there. He played really well at Virginia Tech, and then took a step up last year once Tennessee finally put him in the lineup. But I think Florida was kind of fortunate to catch him early on in the season last year. And then you look at Kentucky, and yeah, they've got Will Levis coming back, but Wan'Dale Robinson's leaving. They lost 2 offensive linemen who were starters to the NFL. Their running back is suspended, I think, for the first 3 games of the year, and one of those games is coming to the Swamp. And then their defense, Josh Paschal was a huge part of that defense, able to be really versatile linebacker, a 2nd-round pick in the NFL draft. So where are they improving if they're already in this cluster? And I think that's sort of the thing that I look at is from last year's stats, you've got this cluster of teams, and who's taking a step forward, who's taking a step back. I think anybody who watched any of Florida last year knows that if Anthony Richardson's healthy, they've taken a step forward. And that's really the question, I think, for Florida is Richardson going to be able to stay healthy? Because Jack Miller, the backup, broke his thumb, so he's out for a little while. And if Richardson gets hurt, then Florida's obviously going to struggle. Those were sort of, but it wasn't really a hard decision for me. It was Florida or Tennessee, 2 or 3. I think those are clearly the 2nd and 3rd best teams in the East, given the quarterback play that we're probably going to get from them, and given the limitations of South Carolina, Kentucky, Missouri, and Vanderbilt. The hardest choice I actually had when it came to those Final 4 was, I think, Vanderbilt. I picked them 0-8, but that's because I'm not quite sure how far they've come in 1 year, but I think Vanderbilt may come up and snipe somebody, may even end up in front of Missouri.
So what is the biggest question you have for the Gators entering the season that we just cannot answer till we see them on the field?
Defensive line. Their defensive line was terrible last year. It was terrible 2 years ago. They've been in the bottom half, actually really the bottom third of the country, not just the SEC, but the country in terms of rushing yards allowed per play, in terms of expected points added, all the different statistics you look at, even if you just look at total rushing yards. The LSU game last year was not an anomaly. They got run over, and that was pretty much what happened all year long. They had brought in 3 transfer defensive tackles last year to sort of plug the holes, and that was sort of a MO of Dan Mullen and his staff. They brought in a lot of transfers at defensive tackle. Adam Schuler was the guy they brought in from West Virginia, and he actually turned out to be a really, really good player. The problem is that the 3 guys they brought in last year were just sort of meh. They were okay, but they weren't great, and the defensive line got run over. And I think that's really the big question for Florida is you've got Gravon Dexter. Everybody expects him to step up into a bigger role this year, but they're also kind of talking about moving him out towards end, kind of where Zachary Carter played. You got Desmond Watson, who's a real big guy in the center, but a big guy. And he's one of those people who you're not going to be able to put out there for 50, 60, 70 plays. And so you start looking at the depth at defensive line, and there's just no experience there. And so Florida is going to have guys step up. A guy like Chris McClellan, who's a true freshman, top 100 recruit, but he's like the 4th guy listed at defensive tackle, at least in the 2 interior spots for this Florida defense. I don't necessarily want a true freshman as my 4th guy in the depth chart up front when I'm going to face Alabama and Texas A&M later in the year. So some guys who haven't gotten a lot of playing time are going to have to step up. And, the quality of the transfer play from last year was not significant enough to give me a whole lot of confidence that's going to happen. And so I do think Florida's going to struggle to stop the run. I think they'll be better against the pass this year than they were last year. So I think the defense will probably overall take a step up. But that's the question to me is defensive line. And they've had a couple of linebackers leave as well. In fact, one of them coming back this weekend. So, but those linebackers who've left, look, you lose a lot of your front 7 with those transfers who left, the linebackers who left. And now the question is, how do you replace them? And the good news is that the front 7 wasn't very good last year. So if you're replacing guys, at least you don't know. But that's the thing you just won't know till the snaps come, is have Patrick Toney, have the guys on the defensive side of the ball been able to secure that space. And they just brought Christopher Thomas back. He had been essentially cut, and they brought him back, which I think is a pretty bad sign in terms of what might be going on there on the defensive line.
Well, considering opening weekend is, maybe aside from Ohio State, Notre Dame, the biggest game in the country, you got a new coach, it's at home. What's the level of enthusiasm and energy and excitement for this season opener? When's the last time Florida fan base has been this fired up for a season opener?
Well, so first off, you're missing Bo Nix coming back to play Georgia. I'm excited for that one just because I think Georgia wins that game, but I think it's probably a lot closer than people think, and I'm going to enjoy that one. But no, I mean, look, it's a brand new coach. The recruiting has picked up over the last month. And so the thing that was missing with Dan Mullen was not, did people think he could win a game when he had equivalent players? And he kept everybody motivated. The thing that was missing from Dan Mullen was the hope that he was building the program into something else. And we basically got the exact same recruiting class every year and got the exact same results every year until everything kind of fell apart last year. With Napier, that doesn't look to be the case. It looks like he's building. His transition recruiting class was around 89. This one's right around 92 right now. The question is, can he keep building that? But these games are sort of that next step in that build. And so everybody's coming in with hope that he's building things, with hope that he's building up to the Georgias and the Alabamas and the SEC. And this is that first step. And look, you can't get any better than a top 10 opponent and in your home place, especially when it's somebody who's from Utah, who's like pumping in humidity into their indoor practice facility to try to simulate what's going to go on in Gainesville. I've lived there for an extended period of time. You don't simulate that weather. Like, you start cramping up the minute you walk outside of the house. And that's actually the thing that I think is going to be difficult for Utah, is you come out and you're all hyped up, and the first quarter, they may get up, and they're probably going to have to, because I sort of liken it to a sprinter. If you're a sprinter who's running a longer race, you start out with too fast of a pace, and all of a sudden everybody else catches up to you. And when it's time to really put the pedal to the metal, you don't have anything left. And I think that's kind of, if Florida can keep it close going into the late third, early fourth quarter, I think that might be some of the things that you see, is that the swamp actually becomes a real advantage from the standpoint of just the weather and the attrition that you feel when you're in that kind of weather.
How big of a concern is Utah's tight ends? I just had Steven Lassen on the show from Athlon Sports. Athlon's got the Utah tight end as an All-American, and he says the other tight end is outstanding as well.
Yeah, I mean they're both awesome. I mean, at the end of the day, that's a huge part of what Utah is going to try to do. Now, I don't know what that means though for Florida, because one of the things you see when you watch Utah, even when you watch the games against like USC, where Rising was awesome, and you watch the game against Ohio State, where he was really, really good until he got injured. When you look at those games, Utah was not blitzing 80-yard, 70-yard, 60-yard plays. And if you actually look at the stats, they were 14th in 10-plus yard plays, but then they were 54th in 20-yard plays and 100th in 30-plus yard plays. So I think Florida's going to be okay giving them stuff over the middle to the tight ends, allowing them to sort of first down their way down the field and saying, look, if it takes you 5 minutes to go all the way down the field and the defense doesn't break and maybe we hold you to a field goal, we're okay with that. And there are going to be some times where the tight ends are going to win the battles. But the question is, Florida's problem last year was not that a tight end caught the ball over the middle and won a battle. The problem was they would like forget to guard a guy on the left-hand side, and all of a sudden Tennessee's streaking for 75 yards for a touchdown. I think Mordecai McDaniel's still standing there in the swamp from that game against Tennessee last year. That has been Florida's problem historically. And so if Patrick Toney and if Billy Napier have been able to build in the discipline they've been talking about all offseason, I'm worried about the tight ends from the standpoint of, yes, they're really good, but I think it actually plays into the fact that Florida's weakness is not necessarily guarding a guy who's not going to be able to take it to the house anyway. It's when you get a guy like, a Najee Harris a couple of years ago, when you get guys like Jalen Waddle and Devontae Smith, those are guys Florida just hasn't been able to guard and probably doesn't have the horses to guard extensively. But I don't think Utah's bringing those guys to the swamp. So again, I think the tight ends are going to do well. I think they're probably going to have a touchdown catch or two. I think there's going to be a lot of third down conversions where Florida's getting where the crowd's getting hyped and gets quieted down because you get a 14, 15-yard pass. But as long as they avoid that 50, 60, 70-yard dagger, I think Florida will be okay.
What's your expectations for Anthony Richardson in this game? Would you limit his quarterback runs, or do you think this is going to be such a tough game where he basically just has to go all out for the Gators to get the win?
I mean, I think that's the story all year long. I think one of the reasons that Napier brought in Jack Miller is he realized he was going to have to run Richardson in order to be successful, and that's not going to change. Florida's really thin at wide receiver. They're really thin at tight end, which is a position that Napier really likes, and they're really young at running back when you think about Montrell Johnson, who was at Louisiana with Napier, but you've got Lorenzo Lingard, who's been in the Florida program for a couple of years, but hasn't gotten a ton of carries, and then Naquan Wright's coming in off of a pretty significant injury during the Florida State game last year. So a lot of unproven guys at running back, thin at wide receiver, thin at tight end. You're going to have to take advantage of the fact that Richardson is your biggest mismatch on every single snap. And he does have the capability to take the ball 80 yards. And so, the ideal scenario for Florida, I think, is, Utah takes the ball, goes, 70 yards in 6 minutes and 50 seconds, stalls out around the 8 or 9 yard line, kicks a field goal. Ball comes back to Florida. 4 plays later, Richardson breaks a 65-yard run. Like, those are the kinds of things that Florida's going to have to do to win this game. They're going to have explosive plays, more explosive plays than Utah does. And Richardson is the best player that Florida has to get those plays done. So I think the expectation is that they will use him to run probably early more than late. And more than anything, I think to make sure that Utah has to commit an extra guy towards Richardson, and then you can start doing some misdirection. The scheme that Napier's bringing in, where they have a zone blocking scheme up front now, very similar to like those Terrell Davis teams in the NFL with John Elway when he was there, when they won a couple of Super Bowls. The goal is to get the running back on the edge and then put his foot in the ground and go and get big explosive plays from those running backs. But if you have a guy like Richardson coming out on a bootleg on the back end, well, now you've got a myriad of different things you can do. And so I don't think he's going to discourage Richardson from running. I think what he's going to say is, don't lower your head, don't lower your shoulder and run into somebody just for the sake of running into him. But if it's open on the boot, go take it. You're our best open field runner. You have to do that. And I don't think he's going to limit him. I don't think he's going to put the handcuffs on him. I think really Florida's not winning this game if Anthony Richardson goes down. But Florida's not winning this game if Anthony Richardson's not Anthony Richardson. And so there's going to have to be that balance. And, you're going to have to tell him to go out of bounds every once in a while. You have to tell him not to lower his shoulder. But I don't think you can take away the rushing component, because just like Rising, right? I mean, Rising, surprisingly, I think, when you watch him play, there's a lot more tape on him out there. But the plays that Rising makes it really kill you are like the 8, 9, 10-yard runs that extend drives. And, he ran for like 7 yards an attempt last year. Richardson was up around 8. So those are the things that kill you, and you're going to have to do that.
All right, moment of truth, Will. I don't know if you're ready to do this, but I'm not putting this out till Thursday, but do you got a prediction? Who's winning this football game? Does Florida win the first game of the Billy Napier era?
Yeah, I think they do. I think this is one of these things where when you really look at the advanced stats, I would have been surprised if you told me on offense that Utah and Florida average the exact same yards per play against FBS opponents last year, considering that Utah scored almost a touchdown more. I would have been really surprised before looking at the statistics. And if you'd have told me that Florida and Utah were 0.1 yards per play allowed apart when it comes to the defensive side of the ball, again, I would have been surprised. These are two very equivalent teams from last year, and Utah's losing quite a bit. I mean, when you think about it, they're returning 17 starters, but only 6 on defense. They got Devin Lloyd and Nefi Sewell, the starting linebackers who are leaving or who've left. You've got free safety Vontae Davis. You've got a guy in Muhammad Diabate who's coming from Florida to Utah, but that rushing defense for Florida last year, Diabate was a big part of why that rushing defense wasn't very good. And then you've got the Anthony Richardson upgrade. I mean, the reality is Florida left a lot of points on the field last year because Emory Jones was not either willing or able to get the ball downfield. Anybody who watched the bowl game against Central Florida who was a Florida fan was incredibly frustrated because he couldn't hit guys deep. He was just overthrowing them the entire time. Richardson seems to hit those. And then the other thing that got frustrating in a game, the one specifically that jumps out to me is the Kentucky game. He just refused to go downfield, and Kentucky was able to compress. And it was really enlightening because when Richardson came in the game for a few plays, they all of a sudden backed off. And you could tell that they knew that Richardson was the guy who was going to try to drive the dagger home, and Mullen never allowed him to do it in that game, or at least it didn't open up in that game. But you could tell that they played those quarterbacks differently. And I think that, to me, is the difference in the game. You're home. I already mentioned earlier the idea that in the third and the fourth quarter, Napier's going to run the ball early. If Florida can keep it close, then I think in the fourth quarter, they're going to be able to I think they're going to be able to take advantage of some of the deficiencies that Utah has on the defensive side of the ball and put it away. But it's going to be a close game. It's going to be a really good game. I don't anticipate this is one where like a team's going to jump out 14-0 or 17-0 or something like that. I think they're just really close. And, obviously Utah's coming in as a top 10 team. Florida's not ranked, but that's based on records last year. It's not based on stats from last year. And when you look at the stats, and particularly when you look at the film, Florida's going to kill people with explosive plays this year. Utah's going to kill people by going down the field. And I think in the first game of the year, when execution is how you're going to win, and that's really what we're saying about Utah, or explosive plays, and then, hey, 3 or 4 plays are going to be flubs, and then all of a sudden you hit a big one. Those teams, I think, are more apt to win the early games when a mistake can kill you. If Utah brings in a new, they got to replace free safety Vontae Davis. If the new free safety comes up too far, Richardson hits that dagger behind him, all of a sudden Florida's got a lead, and it's just one play. And I don't think Utah has that ability, or at least hasn't shown that ability to have that one play to put the dagger in the heart. And so you're going to need that when you come on the road to Florida.
Well, just some outstanding stuff, Will. I really appreciate all this Florida knowledge. Can you tell the audience where's the best place to find all your work?
Best place, readandreaction.com. The moniker there is curiosity applied to college football. So trying to take a different look at things within college football. Like you said, there's an SEC preview up there. Going to have the Florida-Utah preview up there before this goes live. And so you can go over and check that out. A lot of the stats I've cited here are things I'm working on for that preview. And we have a YouTube channel as well. So the Read and Reaction YouTube channel, Stand Up and Holler is the podcast we have on there. It's definitely Florida specific, but it's supposed to sort of mimic a PTI feel where we've got 4 different topics every week we're talking about. So, look, if you're a Florida fan, you're not going to, I don't think you're going to find better stuff out there, obviously. But I think if you're a football fan, you'll hopefully learn something and enjoy it, even if you're not a Florida fan.
Well, thanks again, Will. This was outstanding. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, Mike, thanks so much. Appreciate you having me.
And he's got Florida winning. So,
of course he does. This is the Homer podcast, man. we ain't gonna have no Debbie Downers on here.
To me, this is the best game of the weekend, Shane, because it really is a coin flip. We've been hyping up Florida. We know everyone else has been hyping up Utah. Cannot wait for this matchup. And again, Will really delivered here.
Absolutely. Going to be such a fun game to watch, and it's a true testament, I think, of the power of the SEC. So, and just, again, see a new coach, see a new team in action. So I'm really excited about this one as well.
All right, Shane, the moment of truth. We got some games to break down, brother. You ready to talk some SEC football?
Hell yeah. Let's do it.
All right, we're going to start here, Shane. Missouri opening the season against Louisiana Tech. And Tigers, Shane, favored by 20 points in Columbia. The over-under, 61.5 total points. Game kicks off at 8 o'clock Eastern, 7 o'clock Central on ESPNU. And how about this, Shane? Oh, before we even get to the game, I just wanted to make this little announcement. Former Miami Hurricanes defensive back Marcus Clark, he has transferred into Missouri. I don't think he's eligible right now, but he did start 4 games for the Hurricanes last season, so nice little pickup here. And I don't know if you saw this. I thought this was fantastic. I wish we had the clip, but this is from a radio show. Eli Drinkwitz asked, coming out, trying to get the fans to come out for a Thursday game. He says, hell, we ought to skip class on Friday so that all these students come out. And I'm here for it, man. They need to skip these classes, don't they?
Absolutely. Why not, man? They're gonna be up late. They're gonna be having a party over there in Mizzou. So I think this is an excellent opportunity. He says there's plenty of time to make it up. That's what I do.
Exactly, Shannon. They're setting up hell. It's a 20-point spread for good reason. Louisiana Tech 3-9. Last season, Shane, they were the 114th scoring defense in the country last season, the 117th passing defense. And how about this, Shane? Their starting quarterback, Matthew Downing. Yes, he was at Georgia at one point in time. Here's his career number, Shane. This is not for like a quarter or a half or anything. This is his career. 282 passing yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. No chance in hell Missouri's losing this ball game, right?
No, there's no shot in hell, man. And one of the things I love about this game is there's going to be so many questions answered. I look at Mizzou. I look at what Coach Eli's been able to do, especially with the running backs, how many he's put in the NFL. And why to think that we don't see the next NFL great playing on Thursday? I'm just kind of curious and interested to see what does the next chapter look for the Mizzou Tigers. You got a quarterback that nobody, including myself, gave him a shot in hell of having the starting position. And look, he's got it. He's got the reins. We said this about Georgia with Stetson Bennett. It's just a matter of time for somebody takes it over. And then what? He goes up and he becomes a Heisman candidate. And I'm not saying that's going to happen there in Mizzou, but I'm just saying there's a lot of cool storylines coming into this game. And they're going to make some fun little narratives and cute stories about the famous people that used to play at La Tech and coach down there. But damn, it does not matter.
Like Terry Bradshaw.
That's the first one I thought of, man. And he ain't coming out there slinging the rock. So and even if he did, his old ass would get beat by the Mizzou Tigers. I'm telling you, it happened right now. So are we doing scores already? Because I'm excited. I'm ready to put it out there, Mike.
Yeah, what do you got?
I got Mizzou winning this one pretty easily. 42, La Tech 10. That's 32-point ball game. I think it's a little slow, a little sluggish at first, similar to that Hawaii Vandy game. But, again, Coach Eli has got a lot of competitive depth, man. This ain't the same program that they had 3 years ago. So I think that starts to show later in the quarters. And I look for Mizzou. Once they take that sizable lead, I don't think they release it. I think they win it all the way.
Yeah, and I said Louisiana Tech, Shane, last year 117th in the country in defending the pass. You know who likes to hear that even more than I do is Luther Burden, Dominique Lovett, Chance Looper, Mookie Cooper, Toski Dove, Barrett Bannister. I mean, this is one hell of a receiving core that could go off in this game. Missouri's offensive line returning 67 career starts. And, we all obsess over the quarterback position, but I just named you the quarterback's 2 best friends, Shane, an experienced offensive line and a loaded and talented receiving core. Brady Cook is going to have himself a career game. And, let's not ignore the defense, Shane. Chris Drain had 3 interceptions last year. Jalen Carlisle had 4 interceptions for the Missouri Tigers. Both those guys getting interceptions in this one, Shane. I'm right there with you. Missouri 38, Louisiana Tech 17. I got the Tigers not only winning but covering that spread. I can't believe how many people think Louisiana Tech not only not going to cover but may compete with Missouri in this one. This is going to be a damn blowout.
Yeah, I agree with you there, Mike. And we do it every year with one of these teams that pop up, and we say, well, there's still a chance. And they show, like I said, it's the storylines. They show some game they upset somebody 14 years ago, and this may be the same opportunity. No, I don't see that. Coach Eli's got a chip on his shoulder, man, and I don't know if you've sensed it, but a little bit of attitude, a little bit of walking around. I think he's playing with house money right now, and I think that gets shown a little bit Thursday.
Yeah. All right, Shane, the game you've been waiting for. You've been dying to cover this one. Tennessee hosting Ball State, Shane. Them Vols favored by 35 points. Good night. The over-under, 68 points. This game kicks off at 7 o'clock Eastern, 6 o'clock Central on the SEC Network. Ball State was 6-7 last year. They do bring back 11 starters. But how about this one, Shane? 83 of 112 of their players are underclassmen. Doesn't sit well for old Ball State coming into old Rocky Top, does it?
No, it doesn't, Mike. This is another one. I'm pumped up, man. Like I said, I mean, obviously I'm a Tennessee homer, but this is every start of the season. You got your hype up. You got your, I mean, there's even the 12-0 floating around. I know that's stupid for some, but it may work out. But the optimism is never higher than it is right now, and that includes me, Mike. I am on cloud 9 with them Tennessee Volunteers. Last year we struggled right out of the gate. It took a little while to find our identity, but man, when we hit it in stride. And I think Mr. Hooker's got a new chip on his shoulder, and he's there's even the ads in New York, the Heisman whispers and things like that. So I expect a very, very high octane offense coming out here in Neyland Stadium. I expect the new light show, the fans. I mean, this place is going to be freaking rocking, and it's going to be exciting. I wish I was there, Mike. But I'm telling you, brother, I say all that to say this. This is not going to be a ball game. I don't know if you knew that. I don't know if you could read between the lines there. But this is going to be an absolute bloodbath. I feel bad for Ball State. And you said 11 starters coming back. Mike, they could have 22 coming back. The only thing that matters is the kick returner, because he's going to have ample opportunities to practice this coming Thursday. So Tennessee wins this one. Wager of the week. I'm doing a couple wagers, Mike. I don't know if you wanted to jump in on this, but this is an easy one for me. I've already got it on the app. So if you feel confident that Ball can't cover that spread, or that Tennessee can't cover that spread, get on there. I've got all kinds of bets waiting for you. But I've got Tennessee winning. I'm gonna get my calculator out here. I had it written down. 50. Let's see, 49, 50. Where the hell did I write that thing? Pause it for a second. Damn it! I don't want to mess it up because this is. Let's see, 50. All right, you ready?
Yes, sir.
Tennessee 59, Ball State 17.
Ooh.
They get 10 of that in the second half. It's 42-7.5. I don't know if you're playing it that way, but this is going to be ugly, brother, and I can't wait to see it.
Yeah, I got some stats lined up for you, Shane. Josh Heupel, 4-0 in season openers as a head coach, and not only is he undefeated, he's outscored the opponent 205 to 44. Tennessee's 8-0 all-time against the MAC. And we mentioned, Ball State's got 11 starters back. That's how many senior starters Tennessee has back. 11 senior starters, 13 if you count the kicker and punter. This is an experienced group, Shane. How about some of these stats for old Hendon Hooker? 12 games in a row with a passing touchdown. One more, and he's number 2 all-time on the Tennessee list. And I got a little trivia for you, Shay. Do you know who's number 1 on Tennessee's list? This guy's threw a touchdown pass in 18 consecutive games during his career. Any idea who I'm talking about?
18 straight games. Heath Schuler.
Oh, man. I thought you were going to say Peyton, but yes, it is.
No.
Heath Schuler is the answer.
That was a lot of people don't know, man. That was my boy growing up. That's who I wanted to be. I didn't know Peyton Manning until it was, in the 90s. But growing up, I was a huge Heath Schuler fan. But yeah, sorry, not a great NFL career, obviously. But he was a hell of a college player.
Yeah, so Hendon Hooker's got an opportunity to potentially tie that or break that down the line. Hendon Hooker scored multiple touchdowns, Shane, in 12 of his last 13 games. Cedric Tillman, 7 games in a row with a touchdown reception. Tennessee returns 90 starts on the offensive line. Get the hell out of here with his Ball State 30. I don't care what the spread is, Shane. Give me Tennessee 65, Ball State 16. This is going to be a damn bloodbath here on Rocky Top. And I got just a couple other guys to watch, Shane. I really want to see Jabari Small at running back. Been hearing great things of him in camp. Want to see how he has emerged as the go-to guy there in Josh Heupel's offense. We keep hearing about Byron Young. He's an all-SEC pick at defensive end. Want to see him get to the quarterback, be active there. And the nickelback to Marion McDonald, Shane, kind of has come out of nowhere. He's going to start at nickel for them Tennessee Vols. And one other guy that we kind of wrote off that failed to make an impact last year because he was injured. Now it sounds like he's going to be a starter at linebacker. Juwan Mitchell, the former Texas transfer. I think he's going to start over Aaron Beasley, which no disrespect to Aaron Beasley, but I think Juwan Mitchell could be a massive, massive upgrade at linebacker for Tennessee. So those are kind of the other things I'm going to be keeping my eye on, aside from Tennessee just shooting off fireworks after fireworks after fireworks here. You know what?
That's it, man. They better be loading up right now on the river. So I also, obviously, Brew McCoy, I think they make a statement on that opening drive. Don't be surprised if he doesn't get 3 or 4 opportunities on that first touchdown drive.
Yeah. How great is it, man, to just sit here and make some predictions? We're going to be watching some football in just a matter of hours after literally months of sitting here talking about these games. I'm tired of talking about it, Shane. I'm ready to watch some football. How about you?
Mike, I'm going to be trying to sleep tonight. I'm going to be like, I better get on that Twitter, see if anybody has said anything. Wife's going to be like, why's your phone glowing over there? You ever seen that meme?
Oh, yeah.
But I bet he's thinking of other women. He's like, and I'm just like, I wonder how many times Brew McCoy's going to touch the ball on the first drive, I say at least 4 times.
Yeah, buddy. Well, I can't wait for it. And on the next episode, of course, we'll be breaking down all the Saturday games. We're going to be doing it in person.
Yes.
It's going to be one hell of a show, so don't miss it. We're going to be breaking down more SEC action. I think this is one hell of a show, but we got to cut it here. You got anything before we hop off the line?
No, Mike. This time tomorrow we'll be up 15 points. So I'm looking forward to it, and I look forward to hanging out with you. Try to stay sober. I got to work Friday morning, so I don't want to get too carried away. But we'll see how it plays. We'll just see how it plays. But no, I'm pumped up, man. I'm excited. It's like Christmas Eve. And it's all weekend, man. If you were lucky, if you have a cool boss and you got all weekend off, I mean, you've got games on Friday, you got games on Saturday, you got games on Sunday. It's even Monday night. We're going to have some college football, So it's take it in, man. It was a long off season. We all made it. So this beer's for you guys.
Absolutely. Well, brother, I appreciate you. As always, I appreciate each and every one of you. Enjoy the games tonight and all weekend long. Can't wait for them. We'll catch you on the next one.
All right. See you guys. Go Vols. Big time blowout. Blowout, baby.